ask every one of you to do a short intro of yourselves. We're going to start from Sasha. As you guys already know, Sasha is handling developer relations at Gelato Network. Tell us a few words about yourself, maybe.
If you aren't sick of hearing me already, my name is Sasha again. Yeah, I do developer relations. I also am blockchain engineer, so I wrote the smart contracts for Relay and One Balance that I showed you before last year. I was a PhD physicist over in the UK before, but I dropped out to about a year and a half ago to go full-time Web3. So that's me.
That's fantastic. Then we've got Conrad. Did I pronounce your name correct? Urban or Urban? How do you pronounce it?
Any way you like it. So.
Okay. So Conrad is sorry, I had a brain fart. Conrad is an academic philosopher turned builder.
Also dropout.
Nice.
And is with Peanut Protocol, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about that, perhaps.
Yeah, sure. So we're doing payment links to make onboarding super, super easy. Yeah, and we're stealing a lot of ideas from Web 2.
Absolutely. I've tried Peanut myself, and I love it. Then we've got Eugene Tai from Verify. Eugene has been in crypto since 2017, so one of the OGs. And he is working as an advisor, mentor, and founder. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about you and about yourself and about Verify?
Yeah, my secret sauce of power is like inventing ideas that nobody likes, actually. No, actually, we're trying to build a product that Gelato said. So nobody just want to, yeah. I mean, not your product, but the general idea. So nobody wants to use the new product. Nobody cares about the technologies. They just cares how to push one button and get the result. So that's what we build, and powered with the AI, of course.
I love that. We should be striving for making Web3 push a single button thing. Thank you, Eugene. And finally, we've got Richard Liu, who's a co-founder of Huma Finance, a serial entrepreneur, an ex-Google exec. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about what you do.
Thank you. You know, unlike those two gentlemen, very smart, drop out from PhD. I was dumb. I finished it.
Yeah, that is dumb, yeah.
I'm Richard Liu, co-founder and CTO of Huma Finance. So Huma Finance is an income-backed DeFi protocol. So we allow people to borrow against their future income. Yeah, myself is also, as mentioned earlier, spent a good chunk of time in Google, was more like an internal entrepreneur as a founder and head of engineering for multiple products. Google Fi, Google Trust Stores, Google Commerce Search, some of them succeeded, take off, some of them didn't, but that was all cool. Then did my own startup, Leap.ai, use AI, match people with the right jobs, which later on was acquired by Facebook. So since we're going to talk quite a bit about Web 2, so I want to share some experience working in Google, Facebook, then later on was a CTO for Earning, our leading consumer lending company, fintech in US.
I would imagine that you have a lot of experience to share with us, and we're extremely thrilled to have you on stage with us today. So, as I mentioned earlier, it's not that we have just been not utilizing Web 2 approaches as we should be, but we are consciously shying away from them. There has been an air, and maybe that is just my opinion, but I feel that there's an air of exclusivity and elitism in the Web3 building space. We tend to consider ourselves slightly better than the rest of the plebs. We tend to think that people should have a certain level of intelligence in order to use Web3 services. And then we go home at the end of our workday and we cry because we don't have the adoption that we need and we don't have the users. And we wonder why. So why do you guys think we got ourselves, and how did we get ourselves into this situation? Did we miss a chance for a massive growth spurt of Web3 products? That's a question for everybody, so whoever wants to take the first lead.
I can take that.
Sasha.
So you're asking, I think, about the differences, maybe the new identity that we have in Web3 as opposed to Web 2? I mean, speaking personally now, I'm very intimidated by ex-Googler here, but I think back in like the mid-2010s, Web 2, a lot of people started getting the sense that, you know, everything became an attention extraction mechanism and leading to, you know, for the sake of entertainment for the end user, but actually a massive capital gain for the companies themselves. And I mean, it's quite natural for Web3 to try and position themselves as opposite to that, right? As something that is decentralized, something that allows you to control your own keys and so on. And so I think it's only natural that we took this identity of being opposite to Web2, right? But of course, this might lead to the argument that we shunned a lot of the things that we're talking about here today, which is basically stealing the UX back from Web 2. So, I mean, for me personally, we should probably take the best of both worlds, right? Take the UX from Web 2 and try and really integrate that in a nice way without sacrificing any of the decentralization and Web 3 good vibes forwards, yeah.
That's a fantastic point of view. Does anybody want to build on?
So I think like Web3, we just thought that we gave people freedom. But the question is, do people need freedom? So
they want one click, right?
Yeah, one click stuff and you know, iPhone. So they need iPhone, that's all. And that's why he retired from Google, because ChatGPT just appeared around.
Actually, you know, my view is that Nuela is the perfect timing for us to think about the next 1 billion. And if you try to talk about earlier, I think that I remember Norbert presented the timing is probably the most important thing for any startup, for any product. It might be too earlier. You think about building a great product, you have probably 3 things. Number 1, what is fundamental differentiation? Number 2, what are your adoption barriers? How do you remove it? Number 3, what were your killer features? When you try to building a product features, when you try to talk about ecosystem, what's your killer apps? So fundamental differentiation, which is Sasha mentioned, really for Web3 is about the decentralization and community ownership. Sure, I work for Google. I work for, you know, my company got acquired by Facebook. I was a beneficiary of the Web2, whatever thing happened. But I want to say, Web2 probably created the most unfair inequality in human history. Right? All the companies, consumers with the company together build the ecosystem success, but they capture all the value. Sure, I got some benefit as an employee, but I have to say that's unfair. I'm so happy to say, you know, in Web3, companies are really trying to grow with the ecosystem all together. That's just fantastic. And I think then you talk about decentralization. So poor Zuckerberg had to make a decision about human moral standard. That's just impossible. But in Web3, decentralization enables everybody. We make those decisions together. I think thanks to the OGs in the last 10 years, really built the foundation. I think that's fantastic. Now is the time for us to talk about, which we're talking a lot about the adoption frictions today. Once you only after that, then you can talk about how do you have a killer apps built into the next 1 billion.
Absolutely, and I actually agree with you on the point that what the traditional Web2 world has created is a little bit unfair to the user. But I also agree with Eugene and the question, do we really need freedom? Do we want freedom? Have we deserved our freedom? I've been thinking about that a lot in the sense of privacy and protecting our private data, because at the end of the day, we all want to be anonymous. We want to be protected from the big corporations selling our data, but do we do enough to protect ourselves? No, we do. At the end of the day, the average user doesn't really care. So that brings me to our next question, and we already touched on that a little bit, but what do you think is the point of the largest friction converting Web 2 users to Web 3? Where do we tend to lose the most users? Is it at the sign-up stage where they need to interact with a wallet? Is it the language that we use? Is it the complexity of our services? What is your opinion on that?
I guess I'll take this one.
Yes.
Yeah, I honestly think it's unfortunately at the wallet creation stage, and perhaps even before, as you've mentioned, with very technical terminology that we throw around as if these things were features. No, they're not. They're just infrastructure, and we should think about them as infrastructure. Like, no one should use the word ERC20 unless they are building the infrastructure. No end user should ever see that phrase. I think it's very confusing for people and will put them off from even going through the very, very painful steps of setting something up.
I can add to it. Definitely agree with you. The wallet experience is a little bit tough. But I also want to say there is more than that. There more than is what is the true value of the product to the users. So today you look at all the cryptos building really for a lot of those things for speculators. It's really not building for average people, and so they don't get value. So you look at Web2 products, whatever is most successful, they provide tons of value to users. Like my last company, I was a CTO, earning, which you look at the product experience, it's actually not easy to use. People have to spend tons of time to connect, to be able to borrow against their future income. But you know what? The value was very high because they don't have access to many of the traditional bank. This is the only path for them to be able to borrow money so that they can host a birthday party for their kids, many other things in their life. Ends up they just stuck with the product. They actually enjoy it, they love it. And we had users, because the product does not require, it's non-recourse. That means if you don't pay back, they don't chase you to get back. But we had users who defaulted for 6 months. They still come back to pay. Why? Because the value to them is very high. So they want to continue to use it. So I want to challenge all of us, not only think about the experience, which I'm really excited about what EIP 4337 can do for us. But meanwhile, for the next batch of people, think about what your product can bring true value to people, to average people.
So I guess I know why this venue was named Next Billion, because it's probably for the next billion of users who are probably can at least install a new wallet. They're so lazy. Just if you need to install a new wallet, it's a problem. If you need to switch a network, it's a problem. So probably we need a next billion. Yep.
It's actually for the next billion people who sign up for TikTok.
Yeah, we still use Twitter. We just want decentralized. Yeah, we want it, but we use Twitter, we use Facebook, and all of this crappy Web2 damn shit still exists in our mind. We cannot switch to the new model. Even we are like builders and like technical guys. Are you using something like decentralized Twitter? Do you know this product? Oh, one guy is like, from the whole venue, just one guy, and he built it. I mean, like, he built it, yeah. So congrats. So you win. You're the first from one new build. So yeah.
That's actually a really good point. I love it. But yeah, the thing is, I recently guided my father through signing up for Revolut, which is an app that we use a lot in Europe, kind of like Cash App or Venmo. I don't know what the US equivalent is. Yeah. And my dad is 70, he's retired, and he doesn't have the digital skills for that, but I still wanted to onboard him on that. And it took us literally seconds to get him signed up, to verify his account, to pass the KYC, and then he was like, okay, I'm all set now, and I know how to use that. That's not the case with wallets, as Eugene said. It's confusing. We should not expect people to learn what a seed phrase is. We should not expect people to learn how important it is to protect your seed phrase, because they are notoriously easy to lose. I've lost one myself. My housekeeper threw it away. That was not a pleasant experience.
Rip.
But that's how I consider that a teachable experience. But that brings us to the next question that I have for Richard. I sort of like to continue the conversation in that direction. Traditional finance products are incredibly intuitive to use, even if they are like complex banking apps and whatever they want us to do with our money. And however centralized they are very easy to use and very easy to get started with. How do you transfer the sense of familiarity and the sense of security that these apps give us onto Web3 apps? How do we move from trusted to trustless in a way that brings the users?
So I think, while I agree with some of the things you said, some of the existing TradFi product are easy to use, and Web3 product, Ryla still have some user experience challenges, but I actually disagree with the premise. Those products might work on surface, but it's fundamentally broken. So you talk about, let's say, US banks, Right? Many of course, we use banks, but in US, half of the banks, if you remove overdrafting fee, they go bankrupt. So overdrafting fee, in case you're not familiar with the term, that means you write a check, and you don't have enough money in your account, they charge you $35. And a lot of people, those underserved people, get robbed by that money. Fundamentally, they don't serve user. But Web3, sure, today we have some challenges with product experiences, but I see all the builders are trying to build the right thing, serve the user in the right way in the long term. And so you look at the challenges. Some of the challenges are more like for a certain period of time, because it's a new product, it's a new era. 2 years ago, we talked about, can we support the traffic volume? No, we couldn't. But now, with Layer 2, do we have confidence, guys?
Yeah.
I do. Okay, I see some people are still hesitating, but I see people are nodding. So, wallet, sure, today is the experience rough, totally rough. But I look at Ambire, I look at many other smart wallets, I have confidence in you guys. In 12 to 18 months, I think it will be much better.
Thank you. I really hope so, because otherwise I would be unemployed.
Yeah, exactly. So to the point, though, I kind of diverted away from your question. So what we can learn from Web 2 people, right? What are the things they have done? I think there are a few things they have done really, really right. Number one is along the way, the entrepreneurs and the regulations and actual marching towards. You look at the fintech companies, they were also challenge all the traditional regulation and those type of things, but they were actually working in a very, very close partnership. So I think that's is definitely one. Second one is really just focus on what is the true value you can bring to the user. And those companies who do really well, they bring true value to the user, and I think that's something we can learn more from it.
Okay, so that's a really good, like if I take one thing from this conversation so far, and that's a really great point to me, is that we should not only focus on the user journey and the user experience, but we should also focus on communicating the value that our Web3 products provide to people. Because, yeah, that's something else that we're not really great at in Web3. So we should probably focus on that, and I thank you really much for that insight. Now I'm gonna turn the conversation into a slightly different direction, and I'm gonna ask Conrad about scams and people's perception. Because if you have used Peanut Protocol, then you know that you can literally send people crypto with a link. They tap on the link or click on the link, connect their wallet, and claim the crypto that they have just received. And that's amazing. That is, I think, a wonderful tool of attracting newbies to Web3. However, I have been in the space for a while now, and if I get a link like that, I will be a little bit sus. I will think twice before clicking that link, because there are so many scams going around, and most of them start with clicking a link. So Conrad, how do you think we can build a trust with the users? Like what tools and what approaches do you use to build that trust and ensure a smooth onboarding?
Yeah, really good question. So yeah, don't click sus links, obviously. So with Peanut, I think at this stage, there's an assumption that you already have an established channel with the person you're interacting with. That's how you're able to send the link in the first place, and that's why you're not asking for a wallet address. So let's say we're chatting, I want to, transfer you some funds for pizza or whatever, for some peanuts that you bought, some peanut butter, I have your Telegram already, and we know that this is a channel that we share. So that's the current use case. But in the future, hopefully, fingers crossed, with account abstraction and smart contract wallets, I think setting permissions will be very intuitive and will be similar to what we do in TradFi with credit cards and setting limits and so on. So people won't have to worry about setting an infinite allowance for their USDC on mainnet. Yeah, I think hopefully it will develop in that space, and I know we're all working very hard to make that happen.
Fantastic, thank you so much. Eugene, you're working with AI.
I do.
Okay, and that's a buzzword. Again, I'm kind of derailing the conversation just because I can. But AI is a buzzword now. Everybody's talking about AI. My mother knows about ChatGPT and is asking about it, and that's a little bit concerning, but okay. Where do you see the biggest intersection of Web3 and AI? And also, do you think that using such buzzwords and jumping on hot bandwagons helps us attract more users to Web3, or maybe has the opposite effect?
Yeah, definitely. So we just stated this AI just to attract users, to be honest. No, I'm joking. No, I mean, okay, so let me just return to the beginning. So AI and different technologies are just technologies. The main thing that products should do is to solve customers' problem. So if you answer, if your product answers to the customer question, if it solves their problem, it's gonna be in demand and it's gonna attract user. Even if you use the most overhyped technology, AI, I don't know, quantum computers, everything, and it does nothing, it won't attract users. So it's pretty simple. And in my humble opinion, all of these technologies is brilliant in Gelato, and a lot of us, like really wonderful builders, are enchanted of all of these like beautiful technologies, but they made for us, for pros, not for people. To attract people from Web 2 or whatever, from real life, you should use the familiar interfaces, like credit cards or television or whatever, what users, so you cannot change the people habits. It's like the main problem. So I'm totally agree about the integration. So we should mostly build B2B and to share our technology, to implement it in our products. Like I would love to implement Gelato and then U-Wallet and whatever, and make it stronger. But for people, it should be like, if they're like AI right now, we're gonna put, okay, we use AI. So, but it's just a technology. And to make the long story short, if it solved the problem, it's gonna attract people. If not, come on.
Okay, we're circling back to that. And you made a distinction between the users and developers. And I think that's a good segue to asking Sasha, who I'm guessing you mostly work with developers. What do you think is the biggest point of friction? Because we talked about the biggest points of friction for users, but what are the biggest points of friction for developers, and where do they struggle the most with building tools for adoption?
Yeah, that's a good question. So to make my marketing team happy, Gelato is Web3's decentralized backend. And if you listen to those terms there, they're a little bit of a juxtaposition, right? Decentralized backend. Decentralized might be Web3, right? And the backend, even though it's a general computing concept, let's just label that as Web2 for now. And the idea of Gelato, we are a developer-first company. We offer our services to developers, and they are our target audience. We are trying to bring Web 2 UX to Web 3 without sacrificing decentralization, like I mentioned earlier, right? And for us, to bring it back to your question, we have really, spent time, and like Eugene mentioned, like we saw the problem and how do we solve it, right? First problem we saw a while back was automation, right? Smart contracts need to be triggered, and people don't want to run massive scripts with private keys holding somewhere to get hacked or something. They don't want to run their own P2P decentralized network or whatever to be able to run all this. They don't want to run their own massive backend. So we enable users through a UI, programmatically or even on chain, to automate your transactions. After that, we have Relay, right? We wanted people to use a Web 2 request, send a JSON through, and be able to interact with a blockchain. And we see massive traction in that because that's what people wanted, right? And finally, we have a similar project now called Web3 Functions, which is another pain point we found where smart contracts, even with oracles, they live in their own layer, right? Like literally. So they have to access off-chain data. Yeah, you can use oracles, but back in the bull market, using an oracle would probably cost you half your VC funding. So what we realized is that we now offer like what's called a cloud function, very similar to Web2, serverless style, where you can run a TypeScript function, access all your lovely Web2 APIs, ETHDenver weather if you want, and execute transactions based on that using Relay through that, right? You just run a TypeScript function and it will do it all for you, right? So basically, we're trying to eliminate developers really ever having to bother with interacting with the blockchain directly, because we will handle the 157 block reorg on Polygon, which happened a few days ago. Good fun. We will handle everything for you in the background, right? And that's kind of like we're trying to run this backend for you. And I mentioned it's decentralized. Well, we already have third-party node operators running Gelato nodes. So if we go down, good old staking facilities over in Germany will still run us, or whoever our partners are, will run our service and receive a fee for running relaying, automation, and so on. So that's the pain points that we had and we tried to solve.
All right, so to sum up and to see if I'm understanding correctly, we need to simplify things not just for the users, we need to simplify it for developers. We need to reduce the complexity and the need of interacting with the blockchain for developers.
Yeah, which is kind of funny when you think about it, right?
When
Even the developers shouldn't talk to the blockchain.
I find it hilarious, but also it makes so much sense. I
Yeah.
have been in the space for a while now, and now at this point it makes so much sense.
Even the developers need one click.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, developers are people, contrary to common belief. So, okay. As we are heading towards the end of the panel, and I would like to leave like a few minutes for people from the audience to ask questions, I'm going to ask you all one last question. We talked about the things that we can steal from Web 2 to onboard more people. Now, I would like to ask you, who can we steal from? What are, in your opinion, the companies that do the best in terms of growth, and what are the growth hacks that we can transfer from Web 2 into Web 3?
So, okay, I've got it. Like iPhone. So everything you need, just your face and smartphone. That's how it works. It's perfect, actually. I'm not joking right now. So because they made it, you've got your face and the whole world. So it's perfect. So that's how it should work. So let's steal iPhone.
I don't know. Actually, I don't know if you have recently transferred one iPhone to a new one, like setting up a new iPhone. I did that the other day because I ran out of memory, so I had to buy a bigger iPhone. And now I have a 1 terabyte phone, and you can all be jealous of me. But it took me literally like putting the two phones next to each other and tapping twice on the screen, and it was done. It took a while, but it was done. Like, it did not require anything from me. So maybe one day we'll have the technology. I mean, that's probably like science fiction at this point. But maybe one day we'll have the technology to transfer one wallet to another, or to import one wallet into another with a tap, or by looking at our iPhones. So, good.
Yeah, maybe one day we're gonna have something that's gonna make all of our deeds, and we just be like raising in your hands, say, okay, I just want to profit, and just thinking about it, and profit come. Okay, right, it's perfect. I mean, like,
If we live in if we have a world like that, sign me up, please. I would love that. Thank you. What about you guys? What do you think, Richard?
Yeah, I can add it. So in terms of growth from Web 2, you look at TikTok, the user growth just like crazy. Or talk about finance, Robinhood. So let's look under the hood, what they have done right. Number one, you look at all the ride sharing, any other apps that grow very well, there are two things. Number one, the value to the user. You really have to true value to the user. Number two, time to value. All the companies, their growth teams spend so much time just to optimize time to value so that people can really quickly get it. Here I have a challenge for the audience. So I assume a lot of them, you guys are wallet developers, Ambire, and we actually put together a bounty potentially for smart wallet and DeFi come together. So we believe is in the future, every wallet should have a credit line. So today, wallet work as a debit card. So one of you guys mentioned should have a credit card. Is that Eugene? Yeah. Credit card experience. I think with account abstraction, this is possible. This is possible. You get DeFi and wallet combined, so that people get the wallet, and because each wallet is a contract, that means you can introduce all kinds of mechanisms for you to manage the accountability, keep the user accountable. And on top of that, you have all kinds of lending pools on top of that. So like human finance, we build your income-backed protocol so that one of the pools will allow you to call the credit line pool. So that means that everybody have a revolving credit line. You borrow, you get approved, you borrow, you pay back, you borrow, you pay back, like a credit card. And we actually have a challenge, 10,000 USDC and bounty for people to build something amazing experience, credit line for each wallet. So talk to me if you're interested.
Also, if you build it, come to me as well, because we would love to integrate that in Ambire Wallet. Because I don't know if you're aware of that, but borrowing in most countries and most jurisdictions around the world, not a taxable event. So there you go. Life hack. You can literally spend your crypto without paying taxes on it. So that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, so you mentioned growth. I think I can put it maybe as a negative, like what have we done wrong in the past? And I think in crypto, we had this amazing idea, okay, you can have incentivized growth and just take your normal customer acquisition cost and just give it directly to users. But what we've learned is it leads directly to wash trading and to airdrop communities that hunt for this kind of stuff. And I think the next step will be to very cleverly weave it into a social fabric that already exists through referral links and having some way of actual genuine people refer each other. And yeah, that's one of the things that Peanut does. So hit me up.
That's amazing. Yeah, I agree with you. And the bear market actually helps with that, in my opinion. Because like airdrops and incentivized attention is a very bull run thing to me. So it is the bear run that shows us what are the actual projects of value. That's amazing. Okay.
I can be a broken record again and say, because I spend my time reading very exciting books called Designing API Principles. Again, obviously my target audience is developers. Looking at companies like Stripe or Shopify, I mean, it's inspiring in terms of growth being developer growth. First of all, documentation being super key. I spend a lot of time writing documentation, and just with APIs in general for developers, like the simplicity, the modularity, the versioning, Stripe really nailed it. I mean, and rightly so, and they deserve it in terms of their user growth. And I think that's something that Web3 developer platforms try to do, but I think should really strive towards improving that as well.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And we have a couple of minutes left for questions from the audience, so maybe you can take like 1 or 2 questions. There you go.
Okay, what do you think about the role of hybrid finance to onboard people? Okay, because we are talking about, okay, making it easy, but for people that have economic activity and just try to move to crypto, I think that is like the thing we all want, but it's not happening just like that, okay? Because they have to keep books, they have to keep accounting, and trying to say that they are just throwing away those activities, I think is just, I don't know, a hope, okay? So what do you think should be the role of hybrid finance, and if we need to develop more of those platforms? And I have another question also. What do you think about inviting more lawyers and financial accountants to this kind of events, maybe to try to reduce the friction points?
That's an amazing question. Thank you. Well, 2 questions actually. I'm guessing humor finance is like a really good interaction, like intersection between.
Sure, I think the first one is in terms of, I'm not very familiar with the term. You use the hybrid finance. I don't fully understand it, but I get the point is that if we don't have tons of things to do for them to do, bring them on board, what is the purpose? I truly believe it's really important. We have some apps really provide true value to average people. And we sit here like human finance, we want to bring DeFi to the 99%. not to the 1% speculators. Today, DeFi, we support those 1% very well, but we have to find a way to support the 99%. If they find value, we bring them on, we support them. Let's think about this. The businesses in Southeast Asia, in Africa, in Latin America, because of inflation, honestly, they have hard time to access capital. If you can, on the other side, they have a lot of income. If you can enable them to borrow based on their income, they can deploy that capital, create more value for their own business and for all the users. That's where we got to do more. In crypto world, in Web3, do something, look into the real use cases that we can bring true value to the user. My personal view, once, now that we kind of solved the scalability issue, and I'm very hopeful, all the smart wallet will bring us to the next level, and in the next 12 to 18 months. Now after that, it will be the killer apps. The killer apps, I think, will be in two categories. Number one is more like entertainment/social. So you can talk about gaming, social apps, or those type of things. Second one is basically your financial apps, the category we are in, because those are the two things that people care most. Give me money, I can support my life, I want to have some fun. Those are two things. I think I'm going to see in the next summer, before next summer, some of the killer apps will emerge out.
Fantastic. I was actually talking to somebody.
It was like how to attract lawyers in Web3. It's absolutely fantastic, like 400 per hour, and you've got a lot of lawyers around. So we don't need lawyers in Web3 because we've got code. So the code working much better than anything.
Absolutely. Hallelujah.
I'm sorry, lawyers, if there are some lawyers, I'm sorry, it's no offense.
So we need it, but when the contract is able to do all this work, I think that work is the best.
Absolutely.
The thing is, though, it's the lawyers who work on regulation that they're trying to impose on crypto. So I think that we don't really need more lawyers in crypto. My personal opinion is that we need to grab the lawyers that we already have and educate them on the technology, make them understand the technology, because I can see that gap. I have been talking to a lot of lawyers, I've been talking to a lot of people who do tax accounting and stuff like that, and they struggle understanding the technology, and they struggle figuring out what a protocol or a DApp can and cannot do, and how things can work. Sorry, we have a question here in the front.
Thank you. Thank you. DevRel director for BNB Chain and Binance ecosystem growth here, and I have been given an impossible task, and that's to please Web2 users, to please traders, but at the same time to please builders building on top of an open source network. And this has been a phenomenal panel, by the way. I appreciate your time. It has been great. My question will be how to navigate the waters accordingly, because from a Web3 perspective, if you're an open source network, builders are hunting you for resources, right? And there is so much resource that you can actually give as an open source network to a builder, right? So they look at you as a network and they're like, oh, money, oh, marketing, oh, PR, oh, comes. I'm like, dude, first build and then we can talk, right? And then on the other spectrum, which is the Web2 spectrum, you're given a service that, in my understanding, remains flawless, what Binance is trying to achieve, but then you have regulators, politicians, and then the competition, which is pretty savage in the space. Some competitors will try to blame you, will try to bring you down, or throw trash at you. So the question is, how can we navigate the waters accordingly when we're trying to be a Web2 player and at the same time a Web3 builder? Because that's a task that, we're seeing it right now with Coinbase and their new chain. You're seeing that this is becoming a thing. So yeah, I would love to learn from you what you think, how I can do that and keep my job, basically.
That's why we have a team. I think all those are very good questions. As an entire ecosystem, right, Gelato and many builder platforms, you got to support the builders We are your customer. But on the other side, people like me building apps on top of all the builders' experience, then I got to build real my target users. In my case, I targeted the 99%, that including the Web2 users. I got to really build suit for them well. So I think it's basically we are a team. Some of us, we compose each other. And wherever you plug into the entire ecosystem, you do that well, right? Gelato obviously support users. Ambire and human finance, we probably have to think about the user experience, user value. I put more emphasis on user value. Ambire, obviously, you guys have to put another focus on user experience. We're working together to address that problem. Of course, balance you guys cover a little bit broad, but for most of us, we focus on one thing, and we do well with that one thing.
But again, I think that the one thing that we really don't have in Web3 yet, and is super popular in Web 2, regulation. We don't have that. Why? Because lawyers are not friends yet, and they should be. So I think that we should be working a lot with regulators and legislators to help them understand what we're building and how we're building it, to make sure that the legislation that comes in, because I think legislation is inevitable. It's going to kick in sooner rather than later. Just look at what's happening like with MICA in Europe and other jurisdictions as well. So I think that we need to make sure that it's up to us to ensure that this legislation is sensible and we can actually work around it. Because I think as much as we want to remain decentralized or die, it's going to come, it's going to be here. MICA is behind the corner in Europe, and there's more regulators wanting a slice of that pie.
And actually, yeah, to add value, I'm reading a book right now about adding value. So to make it like much huge than today, we need to cooperate more. From Binance, actually, it's pretty simple. So I'm spending like a couple of thousand each month for deploying contracts and stuff. You could absolutely easily compensate all of this gas without all of this list and stuff and approval. Just compensate all the freaking gas on deployment and it's okay. So greatest incentive. So I mean like the best one. Other one like services, vouchers, you've got a great connections and network. So like probably you've got Sortic and stuff and a lot of them. So it gonna be great if some builders can have these resources like audits. Of course, it costs money. It's overpriced like lawyers. So we don't need actually, it's my opinion, we don't need like regulation. We need governance. So governance is better than regulation. Regulation is something strong like beast, but governance is okay. It's common like. So gas and this networking, and I think you shouldn't be greedy about all of these AMAs and stuff, Twitter spaces. So let's the young projects spot on. So give them the 15 minutes of their fame on your platform. It costs nothing. It's just like community manager that like holding this. But they're gonna see on your Twitter, it won't be like some scam or regulation or stuff, but it's going to bring some new ideas online, and a lot of your users that potentially like millions could see and hear these new projects. So it's a pretty small media resource like Twitter space. So and you can have like 24 hours Twitter space like for the new project, and you're going to push them. It's not about the money. It's about the support. It's about the like cooperation. So I've seen like being like from not from 17, but from 2016, and I've seen this like it was a Titanic 2018 because everybody just want to disrupt. We're the best. We're gonna disrupt. We're gonna kill you. Oh, come on. So we disrupted our industry because of that. We should cooperate. We should share. So the one thing, if you got something, just share to others. If you're big, share it to smaller. It was like Roman Empire was built, yeah? So it was like still fantastic. So we should care about the people, we should care about the community and the crypto at all. Because we like forgot that the government and the countries and the laws are built for people, not to push people under the floor, but to help people. So we should help. So it's my answer on that.
You know what they say? A tweet is worth 1,000 VC rounds. If that tweet comes from Vitalik. And with that poor dad joke, I am going to start the networking break. But before that, guys, you have been phenomenal. Thank you so much. We've got Sasha Aldrich from Gelato Network, Conrad Urban from Peanut Protocol, Eugene from... sorry, I forgot your
You
last
can call
name.
it fair
It's
fee.
Ty.
Fair fee.
Fair fee or fair
No,
fi?
it's okay. Just do it. Yeah.
Okay, and Richard Liu from Huma Finance. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.